Have you ever noticed that the voice that hurts you the most is not the one from others, but the one that echoes inside your own mind? It whispers late at night, it interrupts your moments of peace, and it judges you more harshly than any stranger ever could. You call it self-criticism, but Jung would tell you it is not truly yours. It is a voice inherited, internalized, born in the earliest bond you ever knew, the voice of the mother. And until you understand this, you may spend a lifetime fighting a battle with yourself, not realizing that you are wrestling with an ancient echo, not your true essence. This voice, so subtle and persistent, has shaped the way you see yourself, the way you strive, and even the way you love. It becomes the silent authority in your choices, the hesitation before you take a risk, the guilt that clouds your joy, the pressure that whispers, "not enough," even in your triumphs. What if I told you that much of this inner dialogue is not the authentic voice of your soul, but rather the shadow of your earliest relationship, frozen in time and replayed endlessly? Jung revealed that our psyche is not only a private space, but a theater of echoes, where the figures of our childhood still speak through us. So now, let's enter this hidden theater together. Let us look at the critic, not as an enemy, but as a messenger. Let us uncover the truth behind the harsh words that live in your mind and see how the mother's voice, once misunderstood, can be transformed into a source of strength rather than shame. Because healing does not begin by silencing the voice, it begins by recognizing whose voice it truly is. And once you do, you will find that beneath the critic, your own true self has been waiting all along, ready to speak with clarity, with compassion, with freedom. In the beginning, before the world had yet formed its weight upon your shoulders, there was her voice. It was the first rhythm your soul encountered, a thread weaving safety or tension into the fabric of your being. When she sang softly, the world felt wide, promising, alive with possibility. When her tone turned sharp or distant, the same world collapsed into uncertainty. To a child, the mother is not just a person, but the very air one breathes, the axis of existence. And so every word, every sigh, every silence became a seed planted deep in the soil of your unconscious. As the years unfolded, these seeds began to bloom in unexpected ways. A tone of disappointment could transform into the fear of failure. A glance of disapproval could echo as a lifelong hesitation to be seen. This is how the inner critic first awakens, not as an enemy, but as a memory, a shadow carved into the psyche. It does not announce itself loudly. Instead, it grows quietly, inside you until one day, its voice becomes indistinguishable from your own. The tender child who once needed approval learns to replicate the voice of the mother within, ensuring survival by keeping love within reach. And so the paradox begins. The critic is both protector and jailer. It whispers, "If you obey me, you will be safe. If you listen to me, you will not be abandoned." Yet in that very promise lies the cost of freedom. You carry within you not just your own voice, but the echo of hers, stretching far beyond the moments you can consciously recall. This is why, as an adult, you may find yourself paralyzed at the threshold of your dreams, held back by words that were never truly yours. The critic is born when the child's longing for love becomes fused with the fear of losing it. Have you ever wondered if the harshest words you hear inside are truly your own? Carl Jung gave a name to this invisible inheritance: the mother complex. To him, a complex was not merely a memory or an emotion, but a living entity within the psyche, carrying its own energy, its own will. The mother complex is born from the tangle of affection, dependence, fear, and expectation that surrounds the maternal bond. Left unexamined, it grows into a force that moves through you as though you are not fully in control. You may believe your choices are free, yet beneath them lies the silent pull of an inner pattern, guiding you toward repetition rather than renewal. The inner critic is one of the sharpest tools of this complex. It masquerades as truth, as reason, as discipline. It tells you to work harder, to strive endlessly, to never rest, for rest feels like failure. It insists that mistakes are unforgivable, and that perfection is the only path to love. This is the tyranny of the critic. It does not command armies, but it conquers your inner world, draining joy and suffocating spontaneity. Its chains are invisible, but their weight bends the soul. Jung saw this critic as more than psychology. He saw it as a myth living within you, the devouring mother who both nurtures and consumes. And yet, here lies a hidden truth. The critic is not you. It is the voice of the complex, the echo of a dynamic that began long before you could choose your own way. When you mistake the critic for your essence, you surrender your freedom. But when you recognize it as a separate force, something shifts. The tyrant loses its disguise. The mother complex is not destiny. It is a pattern awaiting consciousness. To name it is to begin to unravel its hold, to see the prison bars and remember that you were born to walk beyond them. How many of your choices today are shaped by the invisible hand of yesterday? The critic does not live only in moments of crisis. It seeps quietly into the fabric of daily life, shaping how you wake, how you work, how you love. It is there in the hesitation before sharing your thoughts, whispering that your words are foolish. It is there in the exhaustion of chasing impossible standards, whispering that rest will expose your weakness. It is there in the loneliness of relationships, where you hold back your heart, fearing that true vulnerability will lead only to rejection. The critic does not need to shout. It knows that its whispers are enough to paralyze the soul. You may call it being realistic or disciplined, but beneath those masks lies something harsher. The critic leaves no space for compassion, no margin for error, no sanctuary for imperfection. Its voice may sound rational, but its effect is always suffocating. The painter abandons the canvas. The writer never begins the page. The lover hides, behind walls of silence, all because the critic has convinced them they are not enough. This is how entire lives can be shaped, not by the abundance of possibility, but by the scarcity of self-worth. And yet, there are moments when the illusion begins to break. A sudden awareness flashes. Why do I always stop myself? In that question lies the beginning of awakening. To notice the critic is to loosen its grip, to see that what felt like an eternal truth is only an inherited voice. The critic thrives in invisibility. Once exposed, it begins to weaken. Awareness is the first step in reclaiming your soul from its grasp. The simple act of asking, whose voice is this really, can crack open the door to freedom. What dreams have you silenced because you believed they were not worthy? Jung believed that healing could not be achieved by repression, but by dialogue. He called this process active imagination, a sacred practice of entering into conversation with the unconscious. When the critic appears, you are invited not to silence it, but to meet it. Close your eyes. Picture it not as yourself, but as a figure before you. Give it form. Perhaps it wears your mother's face, or perhaps it is faceless, shadowy, austere. Listen to its words. Notice its posture. Notice how it makes you feel, and then speak. Say with calm authority, "You are not me. You are a voice of the past. I hear you, but I choose differently now." This simple dialogue reshapes the inner landscape. By externalizing the critic, you shift the relationship. It is no longer an invisible tyrant, but a figure you can face. In some cases, the critic may soften, revealing fear beneath its harshness. Perhaps it was trying to protect you from the pain of rejection, repeating the same strategies your mother once used to shield herself. In other cases, it may resist, clinging to its power. But even in its resistance, you are already freer, because you have seen it. The act of naming is the act of reclaiming. Over time, this practice transforms. The critic is no longer an enemy, but a teacher. It shows you where wounds still linger, where the child within still longs for safety. To sit with it is to enter the sacred space of healing, where shadows become guides and enemies become mirrors. Jung understood this as individuation, the process of becoming whole by integrating what once seemed hostile. The critic, once faced, becomes a portal to deeper self-awareness. And the more you meet it with courage, the more you discover that beneath its voice lies the forgotten song of your true self. What you confront in imagination, you free in reality. The journey does not end with confrontation. It blossoms into integration. To integrate the critic is not to erase it, but to transform it. For even in its distortion it carries a hidden gift. Its harshness was born from fear, from the desperate need to protect, from the mother's own struggles passed down to you. When you meet the critic with compassion, you begin to hear the longing beneath the judgment. You realize that it was never meant to destroy you. It was only trying in its misguided way to keep you safe. In this moment, the critic begins to change its voice. It no longer says you are not enough, but whispers instead, you can grow but gently. You can strive but with love. What was once a tyrant becomes a cautious guide, reminding you to prepare but no longer demanding perfection. This transformation is the heart of individuation. Jung taught that wholeness is not achieved by silencing parts of ourselves, but by weaving them into a greater harmony. The critic is invited to join the orchestra, not as the conductor, but as one voice among many. This is liberation through integration. No longer ruled by the unconscious, you stand at the center of your own life, guided by the self. The critic remains, but its energy is transmuted. Its once painful vigilance becomes discernment. Its once crushing perfectionism becomes dedication. By embracing rather than rejecting it, you reclaim its strength while releasing its cruelty. You are no longer a prisoner of the past. You are the conscious author of your inner world. If the voice inside became an ally instead of a judge, how different would your life look? When the critic loosens its hold, the soul begins to breathe again. Dreams rise from the silence where they once lay buried. The painter returns to the canvas, the writer to the page, the lover to the vulnerable offering of the heart. What was once a battlefield becomes fertile ground, alive with possibility. Freedom does not mean the critic disappears. It means it no longer commands your destiny. Its voice may whisper, but it is met by the stronger voice of the self, steady, compassionate, unshaken. This is the liberation Jung pointed toward, not the absence of struggle, but the awakening of consciousness. Each time you recognize the critic for what it is, you reclaim a piece of your wholeness. Each moment of self-compassion is an act of rebellion against generations of inherited fear. The chains of the past do not vanish, but they fall open when you refuse to carry them any longer. The mother complex no longer dictates your fate. Instead, it becomes the soil from which your individuation grows, and so the invitation remains, timeless and urgent. When the critic rises again, and it will, pause, breathe, ask, is this truly me? If the answer is no, let the echo fade, and listen for the deeper voice within. For beneath the critic, beneath the shadows of the past, there is a truer voice waiting, the voice of your soul, gentle yet unyielding, calling you toward the fullness of who you were always meant to be. This is the voice that heals, the voice that guides, the voice that cannot be silenced. And once you hear it, you will never again mistake the critic for your true self. And now, as we reach the end of this journey, take a moment to let the weight of these truths settle within you. The inner critic may still speak, but its power no longer defines you. You have seen it for what it truly is, an echo of the past, a shadow shaped by early love and fear, not the voice of your authentic self. Recognizing it is the first step toward freedom, and with each awareness, the chains it once held over your soul begin to loosen. You are not your critic. You are the conscious observer, the soul capable of choosing its own path. This journey does not end here. Every time the voice rises again, pause and ask, is this really me, or am I listening to an old story? In doing so, you reclaim the space inside you for creativity, courage, and love. The transformation is not in silencing the voice, but in embracing it with understanding, turning what once constrained you into a guide for growth. Jung's wisdom reminds us that what is unconscious rules us until we make it conscious. And now, armed with awareness, you are free to step fully into your life, guided by the clarity and compassion of your own true voice. If this exploration resonated with you, I invite you to continue this journey with us. Subscribe to the channel, share your thoughts in the comments, and hit the notification bell to stay connected to deeper insights like these. Every voice you hear inside is an invitation to understand yourself more fully. And together, we can uncover the truths hidden within, heal the shadows of the past, and awaken to the fullness of our own souls.